Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining me again. Hey, let's talk about the Bible because this is going to be an important tool in your journey. The Bible is not just really one book, it's actually multiple books and letters that were written by humans, but ultimately written by God. In other words, unlike the normal books that we read all the time, maybe you buy them on Amazon, maybe you read them on your Kindle, maybe they're just on your shelf. Unlike those books, this book was inspired by God, meaning He ultimately directed the people to write things that were true about Him so that we would understand what He thinks and how He interacts with His creatures. Let me give you a tip. You do not have to take pressure for totally understanding this book. All right, just like you don't necessarily totally understand how God holds up the moon, you don't have to understand totally how it was that He got His important words to you in your time and kept them free of error, but He did because He loves you, and that'll help you. You don't have to be a Bible scholar. Here's really what you want to do. You want to think of this as your listening device. So you want to approach it with a childlike heart, listening, hey God, would you direct me through this? I know you love me. I think that you wrote it to me. Would you direct me as I read from it for maybe 10 minutes a day, maybe 3-5 times a week, and then maybe going back and reviewing what did I see. Maybe you get out your pen and you underline it, or maybe your app allows you to highlight stuff. And you're just looking for, especially in what's called the New Testament, you're looking for what is Jesus saying to me? Why would I say stay in the New Testament? You're not ultimately going to stay only there, but it's the most important, it's the most germane part of the book for you. Sorry, I didn't mean to throw a germane in there. It's the most relevant part of the Bible for you. Here's why. If you think about the Old and New Testament, okay, you might have heard of that, right? Think about it this way. The Old Testament is the old deal. The New Testament is the new deal. The Old Testament was actually made, it was a deal made with a very specific group of people, the Hebrews, the Israelites from a different time. The new deal, the New Testament, is a deal that God is making with you and with me. Both of them are very instructive. It's just that the deal applies to you from the New Testament. This is the stuff about Jesus. This is come to Jesus and He's going to walk with you and He's going to be your friend and He's going to forgive your sin. That's a really important deal. The Old Testament is also insanely important. God speaks through it, but it is describing how God related to His people. It tells us what He's like, but the deal is not the same. It's an important distinction to remember. So what do you want to do? I want to give you 2 tips. Number 1, don't be intimidated by this book. It's really more of a love letter than it might seem at first. I know it looks archaic and whatever, and you want a version that you can understand. Okay, so you're going to stick with the NIV or the NLT or the NASB. Those are letters that describe the translation that modern people have put together. You know, language changes over time. And so scholars and translators make sure that we understand what the original writer said as they were being directed by God. You just want to make sure that you have one that speaks our contemporary language. That's what those Bible translators have a job for. And then number 2, you want to stick with it if you fall off the wagon. This is what happens all the time. People will start, they're seeking, they're being earnest on their spiritual journey, but then they'll kind of fall off the wagon, and then they'll feel bad about it. And that's you don't need to feel bad about it, okay? God knows that you're human. God knows that you get lots of chances. You don't need to just get everything perfect from square one. But part of seeking Him is spending some time in this book several times a week, and just listening for what He says about us, about earth, about the situation here, and about what He wants us to do. Great job tuning in. I'll see you in the next video.